Okay, so this is going to be the story of the lift kit that I'm going to install on my 91 Honda Civic. That is the RT four-wheel drive. Yeah, buddy. And so, yeah, and if you got a good eye, that's my roof rack that I picked up for nice and cheap. And that's going to go on the roof, but not until I get an OEM rack. And you see the fade marks in the paint? Yes. And that, believe it or not, I've already found it and it's coming. So the roof rack, factory roof rack, will go there where it's supposed to go. And then the stereotypical RT four-wheel drive roof rack will go on top of that. And then it'll be awesome. Okay, 1991 Honda Civic RT four-wheel drive wagon. That there's a new shock, and it's wearing the old top hat. The top hat came with the car. The rest of it did not. I got the passenger front put together, and before I even show anything, the car is not on the ground. It's on jack stands. But check out this wheel gap. Yeah, pretty sick. There you can see adjustable camber arms, new coil springs. I'm going to replace the inner and outer tie rod ends. They're completely wasted. I put new ball joint. New upper ball joint comes with that bad boy. And so there's some freaking badass wheel arch opening right there. Okay. This side I haven't touched yet, just to say. Yeah. Not a whole lot. This thing wants to be an SUV when it grows up, it looks like. Yeah, that's something to be proud of. Okay, so that's the first one that I've done. And this was the shock that was in there. And the previous owner obviously did like eBay coilovers, wanting to do some kind of lowering to the front. This is the new cap, top hat from the new spring. So looking at where we're at here, height wise at the top, everything's the same. So you gain a couple inches there. Overall height. If I get to where those two tops are in line from here, you can see that one in the back goes out quite a ways. And then these are the new forks. Well, the one is new, and looking at it, it's ½ inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch taller where that bolt is. Yeah, so that's for the front. And of course, you know, in my own classic fashion, I went ahead and said, God damn it, I'm gonna do this right now, and boom boom boom, went and started twisting and doing everything, tearing it apart, and next thing you know, it's late as hell in the middle of the night and everybody's asleep, and I didn't really show anything at all of how I got to this point. So with any luck, I'll take my time opening the other side up and stop and make notes as I go. New inner tie rod end, new outer tie rod end, new adjustable camber upper control arm with new upper ball joint, new shock, new spring, new fork, new ball joint at the lower. And so yeah, I'm really glad I bought the suspension kit with all the goodies. I ended up cutting, but this is what's left of the inner tie rod end. It's totally gone, wasted. So that was a good idea. Here's the outer, upper, and lower ball joints. All of them. They're just floppy wasted. So yeah, that's real good that I got that stuff. Okay, so before I go and open up this driver's side, make a couple of notes. The 2 bolts that hold your shock are 14 mil. The 2 bolts that hold the upper control arm, the nuts rather, for both of these are nuts. 14 mil on the shock, 17 mil on the upper control arm. You get under here, this cover, these are 10 mil. These brake line fittings here, these are 12 mil, 10 mil here, 32 mil at the axle nut. Generally speaking, you're going to be 17 mil at that lower ball joint, and at the underside of this outer tie rod end. Those should both be 17s. With that, a little bit of elbow grease, not axle grease, a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of impact gun. It's all going to come apart. Okay, so got most of the underside of this stuff taken apart. Got the ball joint freed off the upper control arm, completely wasted. Got the lower ball joint free. He's pretty damn wasted. Inner tie rod end, yeah, let's just call that wasted. Outer tie rod end, same story. So every bit of that is junk. It's gone, it's dead, and I got good stuff to replace it. Okay, so everything here, if you don't know how to get that far along, too bad. Enjoy the show. This guy here is a 14 millimeter bolt that holds the fork onto the bottom end of the shock. So I'm going to take him loose. I still have the upper control arm and those 17 mil bolts and the 14 nuts and the 14 mil nuts that are on the top end of the shock are still connected up top. So with this guy loose, I'm going to whack on this with a hammer once or twice. Fork should drop. That'll make room for me to take the 14 mil bolts loose from the top, 17 mil bolts loose from the top, and then it's outside of taking that inner tie rod end off, it's time to start putting new stuff in here. Okay, so I just took my 2 14 millimeter nuts loose. One of these guys kept the lock washer. The other one kind of opened up. So I'm going to make sure and keep both of those. And this is the shock that I just took out. Just like the other side, it has these eBay cheapo coil spring kits. So what I did is I just took a big old channel lock and I spun these guys down to take the load off. And now I should be safe to go ahead and open that up. And 5 millimeter fits into the hex in the top side of this thing. And then I'm just going to grab this guy with a vice grip and spin that nut loose, because I have to save this whole top hat and I need to save this rubber inside here. The rest of it's garbage. Okay, and now comes the fun part, because this spring and this cap on top of this assembly, that is under pressure. And to take that guy loose, the smartest way is to use a spring compressor. This is a pretty badass spring compressor right here. I don't know what the fuck it's supposed to be used on, because that sumbitch is too big. It ain't gonna get in here. I've tried using a pry bar and shit to get it to go. It don't go. So I'm gonna do it with the scary ones, the old style ones. That's how I did the last. That's how I did the last one. So I'll compress the spring, take the cap loose, and then put the other cap on top of here and put it back together. Okay, old shock, old spring, old stuff, new cap, new shock, new spring, old cap. That way it'll tie into the car nice and happy. That's what makes the front complicated. Okay, just getting more stuff ready. This upper control arm assembly, the bushing bolts and stuff do not come on there. You have to put them on, so I've got to tighten this, get it snug, get it to where it's at the correct torque spec. These guys will go here once he's actually in place in the vehicle. But just because I didn't show stuff before, that all needs to be set up. And then I've got my cotter pin for him off to the side. And then again, because I didn't show stuff before, old ball joint out. Here's the new ball joint. I'm going to push him in. Snap ring, cotter pin, ball joint press. For taking them out, I just use this. This is my push out press. And for pushing them in, I'm going to use that so I don't destroy it. Compressor's loud. New ball joint. This is still old. So I got the rear shocks and the rear camber put in, but I'm still a little raked out back. The thing that I'm missing is the rear lower control arms need to be flip-flopped yet, and then that will even me out. But my bushings were totally wasted on the rear, and there's no way I was gonna reuse any of that. So she's gonna go and time out until parts arrive, and then I'll probably just get complete lower control arms and just replace them completely. But that's where it sits for right now. I did end up adjusting the camber. I got it pretty close, front and rear. So the up and down on the wheel is not ridiculous like it was before. Not terrible. That wheel gap is awesome. You see my neighbor's truck? The only difference is this is a Civic.